Loaded question. Busy day in the little town of Nahant today.
Yeah, it's been busy for sure.
Did you get any reports today about anybody's network being out again?
Not today.
Yeah.
Why,
I was having trouble this afternoon.
That was earlier in the week.
Hmm.
That was definitely an issue. Mark, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yep.
We got cell phone service boosters installed in the town hall today. You actually can receive a call in the building. I said to the people from Verizon, I was like, you are like taking this building 100 years into the future.
Yeah. You know, it's crazy in the United States, our cell phone coverage. I mean, you know, as you know, I go camping a lot. You can't get anything anywhere. You know, I go to China, to the Great Wall of China. I was there a few years ago. Great service. I was in South Africa. Great service. I'm like, what is going on here in the United States? Crazy. Nahant Town Hall finally got service. 20th century. Amazing.
When did you go to the Great Wall?
My son Michael lived there for about 5 or 7 years or so. So we had visited him a few times.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
It's amazing where you'll go to see your kids, isn't it, Mark?
I know. I wouldn't go anywhere if it wasn't for them. I'd be stuck in the heart, I guess.
Hey, Tony.
Hi.
I sent you an email about half an hour ago or so with from my personal email. It's about an open space committee or presentation scheduled for the 25th.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to mention that in the opening comments, but maybe you can share the screen when that time comes.
Yeah, please do. Yep.
Big agenda.
Hey, one
Yes.
more thing. My computer speakers are a little bit quiet, so I'm going to try plugging in this external speaker, but let me know if you get feedback from it. Does that sound okay at your end?
Yeah, sounds fine.
Okay. I'm always sort of straining to hear without a headset or an external speaker. So.
Okay, it's 6:30. Let's see. I'll open the joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Health, March 18th, 2021 at 6:30. First on the agenda is the update on COVID, and hopefully one of these days, Deb, that's not going to be first on the agenda, but until then, it's all yours.
All right, thank you. I know I was hoping we were going to have, our numbers were starting to go down, it looked like in February, but unfortunately in March, That's reversed itself a little bit. And we currently have 14 cases in town. The cases seem to be trickling in 1 or 2 every day. It's very interesting to see statewide and here in our own town that the age group now of the people that are testing positive, as you can imagine, and it makes perfect sense, that as the older people have been getting vaccinated, and many of them have received 2 vaccines already, the average age of the people that are testing positive right now, the highest number is in the age group of 0 to 19, followed by the second age group, which is 20 to 29. And if you look at the graph, it's exactly, the oldest people are way down at the end, and the youngest people are coming in first. For the weekly numbers that just came out tonight, the good news is Chelsea, Lynn, Marblehead, Swampscott are all in the yellow. We are in the gray, which is even better than green. And Revere is our only neighboring community that remains in the red. In Nahant, in the last 14 days, this data was collected from March 1st to March 14th. We had 547 people tested, and only 9, I can say only 9 tested positive, or I could say and 9 tested positive. So, and we've had, as I said, a few more trickle in since that date. So, so that's the numbers. We have today a big cluster now that's starting at Swampscott High School. We were in conversation with the Swampscott school nurses and the public health nurses, and we'll see more of that as cases continue to trickle in. Seems to be from a gathering that was held in some secret place that has yet to be identified. So they had to close the high school today and go 100% remote because of that. I don't know, is John on the line? I don't see him, Tony.
I don't see him.
No. Just the other bit of information I wanted to share, I'm sure people are very aware of it, is starting Monday, which is the 22nd, a whole new group of people will be eligible for the vaccine. And the vaccine hours, both at Lynn Tech and at the Board of Health vaccine centers with Lynn, are going to be expanding so that we can reach the expected demand of the people that are going to fall into this new category, which includes all the restaurant workers, all the retail workers, many people in transportation, which is great, all the bus drivers. I think, Tony, even the DPW workers are included in this, the court system workers, the public health workers, funeral directors, and funeral homes. So it's great that we're opening it up, and hopefully, like, by the middle to end of April, everybody will be able to come to a clinic and get a vaccine. And I think that's what we're all looking forward to right now. So that's pretty much all the news that I have.
Do we have any data on how many Nahant residents have been vaccinated?
Yes, we do. We have
About a third.
about a third of our about a third of our residents have been vaccinated. I think the total was, well, the total number of people we have, Tony, right? 32, 34?
Yeah.
And we have about a third of those. So say 30%.
And, I think I feel comfortable enough saying that of the 2 first eligible criteria, so 75 plus and then 65 to 74, each of those categories for the town of Nahant, we're at like 85% vaccinated. So that we're doing really, really well.
Right. And on another note, I was in discussion today with our annual flu supplier, and we put in our order for next year's flu clinics. So lots of vaccines floating around right now.
And
I
John
do
is
see
on the call now.
John, you have anything to add to Deb's remarks?
Well, anybody who checks the town website saw the posting that we move into phase 4, step 1 on Monday. And the posting includes the increases in gathering limits and the changes to the travel order. You want me to give a couple of those highlights?
Yeah,
Sure.
please.
Okay, so in the public venues, we're going up to 150 outdoors and 100 indoors. Private venues, private property, that stays at 25 outdoors and 10 indoors. Ballparks are opening, but staying at a strict 12% capacity. And I feel like I'm back in the movie Flashdance, but dancing is back, so we can we can play the music. A big change with regard to the travel orders is that as of Monday, it becomes travel advisory. Travel orders are enforceable. Travel advisories are guidance. And there's some bulleted items on that the posting on the town website identifying the categories of folks who are exempt from the advisory. Obviously, as vaccinations become more prevalent, that changes the landscape. And so I'm glad to see that the state is adapting. You'll notice last week, Tuesday of last week, the front page of the Boston Globe had an algorithm of how things change in terms of what's allowed. Are people vaccinated? Are they not? Are they high risk? Are they low risk? So folks are trying to pay attention. That's great. However, we also have plenty of references to Dr. Tony Fauci's remarks that you don't spike the ball on the 5-yard line. You keep going. And whatever sport you play, there's an analogy. And you've got to keep going. So people should count on masks are here to stay for the foreseeable future. Distancing is here to stay. However, will it be 6 feet? Will it be less? We'll see how that evolves. We remain committed to the frequent cleaning of frequently touched surfaces. However, the emphasis is on the air in the indoor space that you're occupying. So when I talk to people about what will be allowed inside and the implications for the event site, I always ask about the air exchange. If it's a mechanical device, what is it rated at? And there are some devices that have not worked in years. Some use a filter, some do not. Some are recirculating air at 85%, and some are going 100% fresh air. So that plays in very, very much so. And it's been known since the beginning of this outbreak that the ability to exchange air, fresh air for used air and exhaled air is very important. We also looking at that the fact that we're going into phase 4, step 1, and we're looking at the data. The data looks great. However, very important that we do not assume that everything is done and we go back to the way things were a year and a half ago. We are likely to see surges. Now, how large will these surges be around here? We do not know. So we'll keep an eye on what the data says. And Deb and I attend meetings twice a week with the State Department of Public Health. And there's a lot of collaboration with the Department of Environmental and Secondary Education. And I attended a webinar this morning with the director of the Department of Labor Standards. So there's, as I said, there's been a lot of collaboration, and there will continue to be. Any questions?
Well said, John. Thank you very much.
Oh, one last thing though, testing remains important. Even though vaccines are being delivered, it remains very important that people avail themselves of the availability of testing, because it is through testing that we will be able to determine who is positive and asymptomatic, and it will assist us in the all-important contact tracing that Deb has been involved with so much so since the beginning. Thank you, Mark.
All right, thanks, John. Before we move on, again, thanks again, Deb and John, and all your volunteers. I know you have a great team behind you. All the people who are volunteering at the clinic, it's going great over there. So we really appreciate all the efforts you're putting into it. So thanks again.
And Mr. Chairman, too, I just will add, Deb and John joined us in our department head meeting this week. We had a great conversation providing, an update. They provided updates to the department heads. We talked a lot about, the summer season and, different event requests that are coming forward in front of the town, and, how we want to approach this year. And I added that to our agenda because we updated our event request form that's on the website. We ask that anybody that's looking to put together an event we've added a cover letter to that form, to that process, where the applicant will look up the guidelines, the social distance COVID guidelines that apply to the details of their event, and write up a summary of how they're going to adhere to those, enforce those, encourage or educate the participants of their event in what those guidelines are and how to do it safely. We talked a lot about, the importance of bringing people back together, and getting that social connection back up, and trying to create or do whatever we can to create safe events for our community this year. So we look forward to the summer. We're definitely hoping to do as much as possible, just do it in a safe way. And then the other thing on this, on the agenda under COVID is outdoor dining. So as the local licensing authority, the Board of Selectmen have the ability to expand the premise of outdoor dining for our local businesses. Dan and I are looking at the updated procedure for that, because it did change under the most recent executive order. And we will be reaching out to our local businesses, explaining to them what that process is, and then putting that in front of you, the board, as soon as possible.
That sounds great, Tony. And for the new event request forms, when they're filled out, does John, do you review them prior to them coming to the Board of Selectmen?
I review and I respond, and I copy Tony.
Okay, great. Great. So when they get to us, Tony, then it's pretty much gone through the review then.
Exactly.
Okay, great. That sounds great. Again, thanks, team. Job well done. Really appreciate it. We're going to move on to opening comments. I'll start with members of the board. Josh, any opening comments?
I did want to mention that on March 25th, there's a presentation by the Nahant Open Space and Recreation Commission. It's been several years since the Nahant has had a valid open space plan. It's really important that we do. For one thing, it's continuing, I think, the mission of this board and of Tony planning ahead for the future. So it's important that we have a plan in place, particularly in Nahant where we have so little open space. So one of the requirements for establishing the open space plan is collecting public input. So that process will be starting effectively next week. So encourage anybody to listen into that presentation. And then there's about several virtual open houses following that. That's it.
Great. Thanks, Josh. And I know that having an up-to-date open space plan allows us to be eligible for a lot of different grants that may be available. So it's an important document to get into place and keep it updated as we go along. So thanks to that team putting that together. I know that they've hired a new consultant to help them through the process. So I look forward to working with them and seeing what they produce. Gene, you got any opening comments?
No, I think I'm good. We got plenty in front of us.
Yeah, we got a lot. Okay, let me just read a few things. Unfortunately, the winter parking ban is still in effect, and apparently we may have some snow tonight. So it ends on March 20th. Parking stickers are now available. You can purchase them at nahant.org. Last day to object or withdraw nomination papers is March 24th by 4 o'clock. So I guess I still have time, right, Tony?
Nope.
Last day to register to vote for town election or town meeting is Tuesday, March 30th. To the town clerk. Compost area will be open Saturday, April 3rd for the season, and it will be open on Saturdays and Wednesdays from 9 to 3. Recycling for white goods, metals, TVs, computers will begin on April 24th and run through October 30th on the last day of each month, last Saturday of each month. And finally, the Kelly Green Scholarship, we're accepting applications and they're due April 16th, excuse me, by 12:30.
Mr. Chairman, can I just quickly touch on the parking stickers?
Yeah, go ahead.
We had some troubles this week with parking stickers and the wrong link being on our website. And then our website wasn't functioning properly. I believe it's completely fixed now, but I just want to quickly show. Oh no! Not sure what that was. But I just wanted to quickly show. Can you see the Nahant website?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So on the right side here, for anybody that's watching, the parking sticker 2021 purchases link will bring you to City Hall systems. Here, you select Nahant under your municipality. You click here to pay, and then it asks you what you're looking for. So on the left side here, you click on parking sticker. And then that comes up. You scroll down to the bottom, it asks you what your street number is, and then your street name, and then you can pick any number. And then this is where you would put your information in to purchase the sticker. So I just wanted to show that for folks. It should be up and running now if anybody had issues before.
Hey, Tony, on the same subject, only because it's been asked a few times in the last couple of weeks, how do we track parking stickers? Is it by address? Is it by registration? I know a couple of years ago that there was somebody looking into doing something like that. Do we do that?
Well, your plate number it's by both, I guess. When you go and purchase online, you find it by your street address, by your address first, but you put your plate number on there and that gets added to the sticker, and that gets, all of that information is put into the database.
No, I'm looking at it differently. I'm looking at it like, everybody's saying, hey, they give out so many parking stickers. They're all out of town. They're all this. And I'm not trying to create a situation here, but I'm just wondering, is there a way to marginalize that, to be able to determine where those are located?
You have to have a Nahant address to get the sticker. Now, if you get the sticker in the mail and you give it to somebody that doesn't have a Nahant car, that obviously you're not supposed to do that. And that's why we have the plate included on it. And one thing that gets, a couple boxes get checked when you go to purchase your sticker. It checks if you have any outstanding bills with the town, permit fees, water bills, sewer bills, whatever of the sort. And you have to come up to the town hall and settle those debts before you can purchase your sticker. So folks who are from out of town can't go on there and purchase a sticker without a Nahant registration.
Okay, understood.
Okay, great. Let's see. Ongoing business. So we have a new bylaw we're discussing, Tony. I know that you met with the planning board on this, and I see that there are a number of members of the planning board on joining us tonight. So do you want to talk about that?
Well, you skipped over new business. Do you
Oh,
want
I'm
to
sorry.
go through those first?
I'm sorry. Trying to get through this agenda. All right, let's go back. Let's go back and get these approvals done. So the first one is there was a number of event requests. The first one is for Easter Bunny Parade on April 4th.
Yep, I think the date's actually April 3rd. There's a typo in the agenda, but I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the Easter Bunny Parade on April 3rd, 2021 through the town of Nahant, and have requested the organizer and participants of said event to adhere to current COVID safety guidelines.
I'll second it.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Next one is for the Nahant Cultural Council on May 1st.
This one, Chief?
Which one do we got here?
This is for the Nahant Cultural Council.
I'll take this one and you take the next one. I move that
Go
the
ahead, yeah, go ahead.
Board of Selectmen vote to approve Cultural Council's Arts Festival event on May 1st, 2021 from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at East Point in the Lodge Park and Canoe Beach areas.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Next one is for soccer, youth soccer.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the request for Nahant Youth Soccer on Saturdays from 5/1/21 through June 26/21 from 8:30 to 10:30 a.m.
Seconded.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Next one, we have an appointment for a full-time police officer. And Tony, you want to talk about this a little? Yep. I don't know where Tony went.
Well, in the meantime, I can make the motion, and during the discussion, Tony can talk about our new potential officer. So I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the appointment of Officer Keen Allen as Nahant full-time police officer.
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. I don't know if the chief is on today, but apparently this position why don't we come back to this until Tony
Okay.
comes. Updated.
Yep.
I'll just leave the discussion open at this point. We can approve some minutes here, Josh?
Yeah. Go ahead, Gene.
Okay, I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from February 18, 2021.
Seconded.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Josh Antrim,
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. The next is a vote to authorize the town administrator to sign documents. Okay, let's go back, Tony. We have an open discussion on the appointment to the new police officer. Do you want to bring us up to date on that?
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I heard a bang and then crying and
You gotta go.
clumsy 2-year-old. Officer Hogan, who's been with the Nahant Police Department for quite some time, accepted a position with the Swampscott Police Department. And so we are promoting Officer Keen Allen, who's been a reserve officer with the town, but was a Tufts police officer as well, to a Nahant full-time police officer. So Chief Dwyer highly recommends this appointment, and as do I.
Okay, so this Officer Allen is academy trained and ready to go, right?
Yes, he is.
Okay, great. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Josh Antrim,
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Okay,
And welcome aboard.
yeah, welcome aboard. He's not on tonight, is he? No.
He's not, but thank you. I'll pass it along.
Okay, the next one
We
is,
We had one more,
Yeah, minutes.
yeah, we missed one of the meeting minutes, Mark. So
Okay.
I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes for March 4th, 2021.
Second.
motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Josh Antrim,
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. All right, the next one is for Mass Historical Commission grant, a letter of support from the Board of Selectmen for the Nahant Library. I know Sharon, I think that I see you on. At least I thought I did. Oh, there you are. Maybe you could unmute her a little, Tony. I know that the board has agreed to send a letter of support for this application. Sharon, you want to tell us what it's about?
Sure, thank you very much. The library did complete its work on the terrace restoration very successfully. Really pleased with how it turned out to make a successful historic restoration. Takes a lot of moving parts, and they came together. So now the Board of Trustees is looking to repair the rest of the envelope. And so the current plan is to do most of that, everything except comprehensive repointing. So it's everything from the roof and loose tiles, the chimney, a vent cap that is open and animals like to nest in and drop little things into the building, to drainage, including at the east side so that we can redirect water away from the adjoining property, to window frame repair, all on the outside. The good news is the panes themselves are really quite sound. Then the bulkhead in the back, see, I'm in the library, so I'm thinking where everything is. The bulkhead in the back needs to be rebuilt. There are 2 vents on the east side that need to be rescreened and refurbished, again, to keep animals from accessing the building. So all of those things put together, we're doing, we made an application to the CPC for 161,338. That is this, which is about 17 pages long. And we, what you are considering today is an application to the Mass Historical Commission, which is about this big. And I do want to say there are a number of people, you know, I can't write these in a void alone. So there are a number of people that I'd like to thank for their assistance on this. And they include, so I don't miss anybody, you, the selectmen, the town administrator, the procurement officer, the assessor, the Nahant Historical Commission, the Nahant Historical Society, the Community Preservation Committee, the Friends of the Library, and the architect for all their assistance in making this come together.
That's good. And thank you, Sharon. Exciting news, and the terrace did come out really nice. I thought the pointing was really good on the wall. Looked very, very well done. Just a question, and this may come up on the next item on our agenda, but do you, Tony, do you and Sharon sort of look at the projects that are going on at the library and similar projects that may be going on at the town hall? Both buildings are similar in terms of masonry structures and slate roofs and those types of things. And, you know, if you could double up on contracts, perhaps it might be efficient. I'm sure you're probably looking into that, but.
Yeah, Tony has started that conversation with me and with the CPC. And so, yes, we'll definitely, the library would be interested in seeing that, you know, any economy of scale we can achieve by doing historic preservation work on both buildings. That would be terrific. I did speak about it to the Board of Trustees this week, and they are definitely in favor. So yes, we'll keep talking, but meanwhile, this helps get this moving forward. We are basing all the estimates and things on an assessment that was done in 2018, and then pricing was updated this year so that we think we have more current pricing when we send this out to bid. So that's what we're basing the project on right now, and hopefully to make the whole sound out on the outside of the building.
That's good. I know at one point we used to have a blanket contract for slate roofs, and I think it included the library, the town hall, and the Ellingwood Chapel. So they would come in every year and do a review of what needed to be done for each roof and some maintenance and those types of things. But some sort of look at, you know, combining stuff could be efficient as we move forward.
We just talked about that at the CPC meeting. It's interesting you brought it up because we just, you know, the library, Sharon applied, as she mentioned, to the CPC for further funds for the envelope work. And we had a live conversation about expanding that to a pretty large borrowing article that would include the town hall because of, you know, what you said there, where we're right next door to each other. It's similar work. You know, it seems like a great opportunity to combine the two, funding and contracting procurement wise. So
Okay.
yeah, we're looking at it right now.
You're way ahead of me.
Too, since some of the work was recommended to be completed in 2019, and here we are coming up on fiscal 22, the board is anxious to be able to move forward on some of these projects.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sharon. Any further discussion on this motion? All in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Next is a vote to authorize the town administrator to sign documents associated with the Mass Historical Commission grant. Want to talk about that, Tony?
Yeah, we have, you know, we believe that the Town Administrator Act authorizes me to do that anyways. However, some of these some of the grants, specifically with Mass Historical, they want a sheet that, is notarized, dating confirming that I have the authority to sign the contract. So instead of going through the argument or making the legal argument that I have the authority anyways, we'll just do a fresh vote and we'll get it notarized and signed tomorrow, and Sharon will include it in the application.
Yeah, I agree. This is just a dotting the i's and crossing the t's kind of vote tonight. Thank you.
All right, do we make a motion on this? I'm not sure.
No.
That's okay. Sorry about that. Josh, you want to make a motion on this?
Or I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the town administrator to sign documents associated with the Mass Historical Commission grant.
Motion remains. Any further discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Josh Antrim,
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye. And the last on the new business is Lowland Sewer Manhole Repair Bid Award.
So you're going to talk about that, Tony?
Yep, I'm just trying to find the backup documents here in the packet. Part of our administrative consent order with Mass DEP, and just generally across the state, are the DEP is really pushing towns to correct II issues. We've talked about this many times in previous meetings. II is infiltration and inflow. Essentially, it's fresh water getting into our sewer system, which there's incentive for us to make repairs and correct that. So, we're not sending water that doesn't need to be treated and paying for it to the treatment plant. Part of that is we have a gravity sewer that goes through the golf course, through the lowlands. And this procurement is FEMA funded to replace the 8 manholes along that gravity line with watertight covers, so that if we were to have a flood, we don't have salt water getting in through the covers into the sewer system. Okay, here we go. So we had 4 bids. We opened this bid on March 11th. We had 4 bids. Our lowest bid was N. Grenice and Sons at $38,020. Bidder number 2 was Blue Diamond Equipment Company at $54,400. Bidder number 3 was Green Mountain Pipeline Services at $63,021. And bidder number 4 was National Water Main Cleaning Company at $78,700. Our FEMA funding is somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000. So this bid at $38,000 did come in higher, and we are reaching back out to FEMA to see if we can get an adjustment on that funding amount, and they'll cover the rest of the contract. If they don't, we're going to try to find, an alternative funding source, make sure we get this job done as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's important, and certainly with N. Grenice and Sons, who know our system pretty well, I'm sure they'll do a great job. Does this include the manholes along the Heritage Trail in back of the
Yes.
property?
Yes.
Good.
I just wanted to chime in that this is an important project, because this is one of several places around town where we have this I&I problem, and we're all paying for this. So anytime water leaks into our sewer system, we're paying for it. So we got to find these locations and solve the problems.
Okay. Any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Actually, make a motion on this, did we?
Okay.
We didn't make one.
Do we need a motion on this, Tony? Can you just award
Let me unmute Dan's script if he wants to jump in. I believe a motion from you approving the award wouldn't hurt.
Yeah,
Okay, well-
Tony's a procurement officer, but it never hurts to get the vote, and let's get the vote just to make sure that we have our suspenders and our belts tight.
Sure. Yeah, because it's a FEMA grant, and they may want to see that we voted on it, so.
Right.
And,
Okay.
and just for the record, Tony did share those bids with us, so, or a tabulation of those bids, so we've seen those.
Mhm.
So with that, I will make the motion that we approve Grenice and Company to receive the bid award for the lowland sewer manhole repair.
And I'll second it.
Been seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Okay, ongoing business. This is a new bylaw that we talked about a little during our last meeting. So you can talk about this, Tony. I see that there are members of the planning board online also, so why don't you tell us what this is about?
Well, while we're waiting for that, I just want to chime in that there seemed to be some confusion, I think during that planning board, at least initially, and also I've seen some social media posts, that this bylaw is sort of making it easier to host marijuana distribution centers or growing centers. And I think the intent is sort of the opposite. It's making sure we're prepared as a community for if that comes up, and also making sure that the tax rate that we are allowed to apply is at the maximum.
I think that's a good point. That's a good point, Josh. And I think Nahant is one of only a few communities that probably doesn't have a bylaw. So I think it's good we begin thinking about this. Tony, you want to take it over?
Yeah. So you're exactly right. Right now, if somebody wanted to open a marijuana establishment, they have the ability to come into town, request a license from the state. Their only two requirements would be to have a public meeting and have a host agreement with the town. Obviously, we have some existing zoning law that they'd have to get get the proper permitting for. But what the state law allows us to do is A, establish a local excise tax, and B, establish local zoning. Through that local zoning, we are able to limit the amount of marijuana licenses in town to essentially 20% of the amount of package store licenses that we offer in town. So for us, it ends up being 1. Now, naturally, the size of Nahant, we're probably not susceptible to have 20 proposals in front of us, all of a sudden. It's probably not going to happen. But certainly the idea here was to be ahead of it so that, if a couple proposals came in front of us, we have an existing bylaw and we have the existing tax. Certainly this is a lucrative business or industry. And, it's my opinion that establishments or, big companies are, looking at towns in the Commonwealth that don't have an excise tax and don't have a local zoning law and targeting those. So we want to be ahead of that. This law passed, legalizing marijuana passed in 2016. Is that right, Dan?
The local town elections were in 2016, and it went from there. And then it went from medical, then the recreation. So it started the ball rolling in about 2016.
So, I know it seems kind of sudden, it seems kind of rushed, but we're actually, 5 years behind. And because our town voted in favor of legalizing marijuana, we cannot prohibit a business in the community, but we can limit it to one.
No, we can't as of now, Tony. If we wanted to try to prohibit, we have to go through another town meeting process. It's quite an ordeal, to say the least.
So the process for any zoning bylaw, any new zoning bylaw that we're looking at here is that the Board of Selectmen are will vote to send this draft to the planning board. The planning board is then will conduct a public process, and they will render some recommendation at town meeting on this issue. Dan and I went to the planning board meeting earlier this week, and we discussed the draft, got some feedback, incorporated that feedback in this draft. So I think it's already, a step closer to what the planning board would like to see. And again, they have the ability to, provide any type of recommended changes that we could handle on the floor of town meeting. Did I miss anything with that, Dan?
No, you think you got it right on the money.
All right, so the first part of this, yes?
I just wanted to, restate what you said about we are not allowed to outright ban marijuana establishments in Nahant because we voted to pass the marijuana laws in 2016 or whatever. So, I mean, a lot of people think, oh, why don't we just ban it? And the reason is because we can't without going through the process that Dan just alluded to. So I just want to make sure everybody absorbs that.
Right. And certainly if someone came to the town looking to put a business in town, there's a process that they have to go through, like creating, developing a host agreement with us and having a public meeting. And, while that stuff doesn't happen overnight, we'd rather not be rushing to incorporate a bylaw and definitions into our bylaws while that's happening. We'd rather be ahead of it. So 100%, this is not to encourage, this is to be prepared. So the first part of this is creating definitions, which come straight from either regulation or state law. The second part of this draft bylaw is this is a quick purpose explanation as to the purpose of the bylaw. And then it explains the limitations. So here, 14.02, subsection A, this is where we limit the amount of retailers to no more than one, which the law will not allow us to go further than that. And B is establishing the location, uses, and special permit granting authority for these establishments. And what we're doing is we're describing where they can be, what they can be, and adding it to the table of use regulations. So by special permit, it would be in the B1 and B2 zone. And I'll also note this under subsection B, sub 2 here, we have the ability to require that this special permit be put in front of the planning board as the special permit granting authority for these establishments. And that's something that we discussed with the planning board. And I don't know if a member of theirs who's on the call tonight would want to care to. I have to stop sharing to find. I see Cal, and I thought I saw Dan.
Cal's on.
Hey, Tony, is that bylaw basically a draft of another bylaw, someone else's, or the state's?
It's a conglomeration of other bylaws that have passed through the AG's office with success. And then we sprinkled in some things to tailor to Nahant and go from there.
And to follow up on that, I've taken a look at a number of different municipal bylaws that have been adopted across the Commonwealth, and a lot of them don't refer to it as marijuana, but as cannabis. And I'm wondering if there's a distinction between the two, or it's just interchangeable.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something to get back to us on, but
No, actually, Tony brought that up earlier. I mean, when Tony and I spoke a few hours ago. It's a great question. Cannabis and marijuana, in terms of the definitions and the regulations from the state, are the same thing. In fact, when it defines cannabis, it says, look at the marijuana definition. And the reason why we're using marijuana rather than cannabis is we're being consistent with the definitions in the regulations. So it's a marijuana establishment, not a cannabis establishment.
okay.
So just to make sure we have parity with the state regulations, we're using marijuana. But it's a good question because it is after the Cannabis Commission, right?
Right. Mhm. And a lot of communities refer to it as a cannabis bylaw. So,
Yeah. Well, if that's we can change it. I'm
No,
just trying to.
whatever you
It's
think is
consistent,
appropriate
yeah.
is fine with me.
Yeah, we want to try to keep it as consistent with the regulations as we can.
Okay.
So I've unmuted Dan Berman. I'm asking Cal, the chairman of the planning board, to unmute. In case you have any questions for the planning board. They are, they're not, this isn't a joint meeting, so they can't make any motion or vote or anything or deliberate. But if you have any questions or anything, I've given them the opportunity.
This is Cal Hastings. I don't think that we do, but I see that Dan is also on. This is due to come up at our next regularly scheduled meeting. And it'll get, hopefully finalized at that meeting. We've discussed the process at the last meeting. And I think we worked out a schedule so we can meet the timeline that we need to meet. Now, Dan, can you hear this?
Yes.
Okay. So do you want to add anything to that?
Yes. First, I'd like to ask a question to what Des Scribb was just saying about the distinction between cannabis and marijuana. To me, cannabis is a broader term than marijuana. Are you saying that the statute makes an equivalence between them?
The regulations, when they define cannabis, they see the definition. In fact, if you guys talk amongst yourself, I'll pull up the definition and read it to you right here live. So give me a second to find it. You guys keep talking about the other stuff. I'll come back.
Okay. So the planning board's next scheduled meeting is April, I believe it's the 6th, the first Tuesday in April, which is the same week that the warrant has to be finalized. We have not yet authorized we had a couple of issues before us. We had a very dense meeting a couple of days ago. I think we have not yet authorized a hearing on the marijuana bylaw because it has not yet been sent to us by the selectmen, who are expected to do that today, here and now. So we will either need to authorize the process of noticing and holding a hearing at our next meeting in April, or we'll have to call a special meeting that might allow us to have that hearing on April 6th at our meeting then. But it's not. I think Cal may be a little bit too optimistic. I'm not sure that we will be able to finish our work on April 6th. There is a lot to think about here. We are cognizant of the concept that we're not looking to rush anything through, but it would be best to get this done to get ahead of any applications for a host agreement and a business license. Not have to wait a whole other year. So we're going to try to deal with this and get something ready, get our report and recommendations ready in time for town meeting, so we can deal with this appropriately.
Okay, Dan, coming back to the definition, I'm reading 935 CMR 500.002. The definition of cannabis means marijuana as defined herein. That's the definition of cannabis according to the regulations. So they're equating the two.
Okay, and is marijuana defined broadly to include all cannabis-derived products and
scrolling down to the
materials?
Right now. Let me scroll down to the definition here. It says marijuana or cannabis in parentheses and gives a pretty detailed definition. It shall I'll just read it quickly. May means all parts of any plant of the genus cannabis not expected not accepted in 935.500.002A through C, and whether growing or not, the seeds thereof and resin extracted from any part of the plant, clones of the plant, in every compound manufacture, salt derivative mixture, yeah, and it goes on.
Okay, that sounds broad enough. That
Yeah,
sounds
it's
broad
pretty
enough.
broad. Yeah, they're
'Cause-
not,
I believe the only distinction in the regs or in the law is with hemp products.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
it does, yeah.
Because
Hey,
our
Dan,
concerns, and as Tony introduced, Cal and I are here as individuals. We do not have a quorum of the planning board. This is not a meeting of the quorum, a meeting of the planning board. So we're speaking only as individuals. But some of the concerns raised in our discussion were about the distinction between a potential retail dispensary and a manufacturing facility, which would, for just as one example, extract the THC from marijuana and manufacture pellets for use in a vaping process or something like that. We were advised that legally we can't distinguish among them. We have to lump them together, and we can put a maximum of one facility, including all such facilities, but we can't say that we'll allow a dispensary, but we can't allow a manufacturing facility. So we have to think about how we might want to consider that. There are, for example, there are externalities involved here. There are fumes and odors that we hope to include in a bylaw. We haven't had a chance to see what's before the selectmen in detail. So we'll need to do a little bit of work on this, but we're trying to. We share the goal that Josh just expressed to try to limit this, get some regulations in place, not attract marijuana facilities here by virtue of the fact that we don't have a bylaw, and try to see if we can get this done in time for town meeting.
That would be great, Dan and Cal. Thanks. Sorry for the late notice on this, but we do appreciate you trying to deal with it as best you can.
Mr. Chairman, can I
Thanks.
clarify something?
Sure, go ahead, Dan.
I misspoke earlier. When Josh was mentioning a ban and Dan just mentioned a ban of some facilities, we can do it, but it doesn't require a town meeting. It requires a special election or a town election. I misspoke. But we can't do it tonight, so to speak. It has to be through an election.
We can't do it. That means we can't do it at town meeting either.
Right. It's got to be, you're right. It's got to be a special election. The same way it was permitted, it's got to be then taken away. It's the same procedure.
Well, we've already had a vote on this, and if someone wants to put it on a petition, that's up to them, but I'm not inclined to to do it. Okay, so we need to vote on this, Tony.
Yes, so I believe you have a vote, which is to send it to the planning board.
Do I have that motion?
Do we need a motion?
Yes.
Do you have, I don't see one in your packet. Dan, could you provide one for them?
I can, Mr. Chair. So the Board of Selectmen would move to send the draft marijuana bylaws to the the planning board for a hearing in order to put them in a position to make recommendations that they can then present at town meeting.
Do I have a motion as read?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Josh Antrimai?
Gene Canty, but just a bit of discussion. I was one of those that was questioning the timing on this and it being somewhat rushed, but I think I have a clearer understanding tonight of what we're trying to do. So I hope that that passes itself along to the taxpayers in the town.
Good point, Gene. Thank you.
Seconded.
Yeah. If I could squeeze one more discussion in there, I think, this is an example of the town, Tony and Dan specifically trying to take a proactive stance instead of a reactive stance. So that's appreciated.
That's how I see it.
Yeah. Okay, continue the vote. Josh? Motion's on the table.
Josh,
Jane
Okay, for
Champion,
mine.
Mark Cullen and I. Okay. Okay, we have another bylaw, plastic bag bylaw. We had a discussion. I know that Max McDonough had brought this to us last week. I think I do see Max online tonight, and I think our last meeting, Max, you and Dan were going to get together and work something out, and apparently there's something here. So, Dan, do you want to, Tony, Dan, do you want to bring us up to date on this?
Sure. Max and I met a few times, and we found some bylaws across the Commonwealth that were approved by the municipal law unit of the Attorney General's office. So we took those, we sort of mashed them together and tailored it to Nahant. And what you have before you now is a product of that. So we're just getting up to speed with other coastal towns and cities around the Commonwealth, and we expect it to go through pretty smoothly. It doesn't really affect a ton of folks around town in terms of retailers, because of the fact we just don't have that many. But that's the long and short of it. If Max wants to say something, I know he has worked really hard on this, so if he wants to chime in, I know he's there somewhere. I thought I saw his name.
Yeah. So all I have to add, I think Dan said that very well, but it's a bylaw to like reduce the plastic carry-out shopping bags in town from the retail establishments like restaurants and convenience stores, because of the detrimental effects of the plastic bags on our environment, and especially on the coastal marine environment.
Great, thank you, Max, and thanks for bringing this to our attention and putting this work in. It's something that I certainly will support. So, do we have a motion to accept? What do we do with this bylaw? We're going to put it in the town warrant, right, Tony?
Yes, so we will, if you want, I can quickly just, the first section here is the purpose of the bylaw. Second section has definition. Third is essentially the bylaw itself. No retail establishment in the town of Nahant shall provide thin film single-use plastic bags to customers. And then it talks about if you're going to provide carry-out bags, what type of bags are acceptable. Section 4 is enforcement and violations and penalties. And Section 5 and Section 6. Section 5, this looks like a this looks like a Dan script legal piece.
Yes.
Is that just typical legal
Yes.
terminology for this?
Yes. Yeah, it is. If the AG somehow knocks out a section, that doesn't mean they knock out the entire bylaw. Then the remaining bylaw can remain moving forward. This is very common. It's in contracts and bylaws and things like that.
And Section 6, which is regulations, providing the Board of Selectmen authority
Yes.
to amend rules and regs related to this bylaw.
Right. They can't amend the bylaw, but if there's some reason needs to be more input regarding implementation of the bylaw, then the selectmen have the ability to do that. But this is a pretty simple bylaw. I don't expect the selectmen to have to do that, but they can if they need to.
Okay, so you don't need to make a motion now. What we're going to do is when we open the warrant, we're going to add it in, and we'll take care of it then.
Okay, sounds good. Again, thanks, Max, for this
hey,
initiative.
Mark, I asked this question at the last meeting. Are we going to be able to have Mark make that presentation? Is that possible?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be able to get Max up on the floor. So,
Is there,
Thank you, Max. Thank you for working with Dan on this. Appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you. It was a very good learning opportunity. I am doing this in I'm working on this in one of my classes in school, so it's been very, very good. Thank you.
I hope you keep an eye on any elected positions that open up in the town and throw your name in there one of these days. Okay. Because we need more people like you. Okay. Okay, now we have a vote to approve the FY 22 budget adjustments. Do you want to make that motion, Josh? We'll begin discussion.
Or I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the FY 22 budget adjustments as presented and sent to the Advisory and Finance Committee for their ongoing review.
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Tony, want to tell us what these changes are?
Sure. So we've made a few adjustments since we officially voted on our budget and sent to the Finance Committee. Today's adjustments are mainly the sailing program, the part-time wages on the sailing program. We had incorrectly calculated the impact of the minimum wage increase, so we are adding funds to their account to account for that. The larger change is here under the sewer assessment, which is under Lynn Water Sewer. We are changing, we're basically got a letter, which we've talked about this for quite some time now again, but the Lynn Water Sewer has expressed to us that we are to expect anywhere from 30 to 50% increase on our assessment. This has it's a host of reasons. They are currently going through a operating and maintenance contract bid, which they anticipate the next contract to be far more expensive than the last 30-year contract. They also have a number of infrastructure upgrades that they're required to make because of administrative consent order from the state. And so that trickles down to the 4 communities. So we are just like Saugus and Swampscott are putting in for a 40% increase. So what we originally had in this under the sewer assessment under the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund from 2021 was 376. So that 40% increase brings it to 526. So those are our 2 changes. It doesn't, it's in the enterprise account. So the trickle down effect for that change is actually in your sewer rate, not impacting the general fund or the tax rate, but in your sewer rate. What that equates to is somewhere around a $2 increase on the rate. So per 100 cubic feet.
Would that be this year, Tony, or next fiscal year?
The upcoming fiscal year, so July 1 moving forward. The bid selection is in April, so I don't know how quickly they'll have their new contract in place.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't want to encounter a mid fiscal year, significant increase.
But this $131,000 increase is being funded through a fund balance or the enterprise fund?
It's going to trickle down to the rate. It's going to increase the rate. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I know that there's more discussion on this, Tony, and I'll be glad to follow up with you on it and speak to others. But as long as we do our due diligence and make sure that what we're paying for at Lynn Water and Sewer are the types of things we should be paying for, and not for things that are not related to the town of Nahant.
Certainly, and ultimately, your bill is your sewer bill is going to be based on your consumption. So finding ways to improve your water conservation in your home, for the town to improve our II issues. And then of course, staying on top of the contract that we have with the, on the agreement we have with Lynn Water Sewer, making sure that it's accurate. Unfortunately, we are looking at an increase. So are the other communities. Some of that is because of the reasons I mentioned already. Some of that is because the distribution of the volume amongst the communities has changed ever since Gorelick Farms came offline, which was the largest user in the system. So that shifted that percentage towards us and Swampscott and Saugus. We looked at, Allison and I looked hard at our enterprise account to see if there was any type of fat in that account that we could shift maybe to the general fund, but there really isn't. It's as lean as it possibly can be. Unfortunately, that's what we're looking at, and we're going to do everything we can to try to help suppress that increase.
Is this considered debt?
No.
No. Even though a lot of the costs are a result of a capital improvement program by Lynn Water and Sewer?
But it's not our debt, it's their debt, I guess. So it's an assessment for us.
Okay, all right.
I'll look further into it though.
Yeah, you might want to look into that, but you may be right. I think there may be provisions, because sometimes that could be a large number in a satellite community like Saugus or Swampscott or Nahant, if they were to be hit with a large capital expense on the Lynn side, that I think there's authority in the agreement that allows us to borrow for that. And if it was a borrowing, then you're not talking so much a impact on your water and sewer rates, because it's a debt shift to the real estate taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So you might want to look into that. But if you can pay for it, if it's not capital, we're not bonding, that's fine. Good. All right.
And if that's the case, we definitely want to make sure that it's benefiting the town of Nahant. I mean, we want to anyways, right? But
yeah. We talked about perhaps hiring a consultant, joining with Swampscott and Saugus, and hiring a consultant to review Lynn Water and Sewer's proposed capital improvement program, to make sure that the items that they're including in that program impact the other communities. So I would be certainly in favor of doing something like that.
Another thing we're looking at, we'll be looking at after town meeting and before July 1st, on the revenue side, is potentially, we're going to explore the idea of a tiered rate structure, where the larger users in town may pay a higher rate than our, lower users. So many communities have that. They have a tiered structure that the more amount of water you use or more amount of sewer you use, the higher your per cubic foot rate is. So that, that may help where most of our members is residential. It may offset some of that increase towards the, larger non-residential. So something that we're going to explore.
Yeah, and another thing, not for tonight, but we could probably talk about is where the town may stand on sort of radio read from water meters, and if it could be the telemetry that you put in place for that, so that it's real time, that residents could actually go online and monitor their water usage in real time. I think that's really important, because a lot of people who have leaky toilets or leaky faucets, they don't realize it. If they were able to go online and they could see that there's consumption at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, then they may have a problem.
Right.
So it would be a good tool for citizens to monitor their own use of water. And if we can put that in use, I think there was some question about the radio coverage in Nahant, and whether or not we can do that, put it on the cell tower or whatever, but it's certainly something worth looking into. Because we want to try to encourage people to use less water, and we want to encourage them to, if they have an issue or problem, to fix it. So they're not surprised at the end of the quarter that they have a big high water bill. Okay, that's a subject for another meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on the budget?
Nothing else.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor?
Shantram, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I. Okay, now it's a vote to open and close the annual town meeting warrant and send to the advisory committee. We have a motion to open.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to accept and close the 2021 annual town meeting warrant as presented and send it to the Advisory and Finance Committee to begin taking positions with the understanding that ongoing review will occur by the Board of Selectmen and that modifications may occur at a later time.
Did we open the warrant?
No, you haven't opened it yet. So you want to withdraw that motion, Selectman Canty, and motion to open the warrant.
Withdrawn. Motion to open is I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to open the 2021 annual town meeting warrant as presented for submittal of articles by all town boards, committees, personnel, and the public for consideration of placement onto the annual town meeting warrant.
Second,
Seconded.
motion seconded, discussion. Tony?
Here's the town meeting warrant, and I will show you the changes that we are making, the adjustments to the warrant. Article 11, this is an article that would authorize the use of $75,000 from our retained earnings in our rubbish enterprise account. If this were to be approved, we would still have about $100,000 in that account, and we would use these funds to purchase the 64-gallon wheeled covered totes and distribute those to every resident in the community to be used as recycling carts. This is the product of many years of discussing with Waste Management our contract, ways to improve our rates, ways to improve our environmental issues related to our trash. And it kind of falls in line with the plastic bag ban in a sense. When we have trash days, our open air containers that are holding recycling or trash, if it's windy, it tends to blow all over the neighborhood. So, one thing that these recycling carts do is they got a nice heavy lid. They're nice and sturdy. And one of the biggest pieces of recycling that makes it a little bit less convenient is that you cannot put your recycling out with in a trash bag. There's no plastic bags allowed in your recycling. So a nice cart like this makes it a little bit more convenient for folks to just take their recycling and toss it into a nice bin instead of having to hold it in a plastic bag. So Article 11 is using $75,000 to make that purchase and distribute the carts. It does not change anything on the trash side. Just to be clear, it doesn't limit the amount of trash you can put out. It doesn't change the type of barrels you can use for your trash. This is solely on the recycling side.
So just to chime in, Tony, that kind of dovetails with the negotiations you're having with Waste Management on the upcoming contract, where our fee goes down if we use these standardized recycling carts. So I just wanted to point that out for folks.
Yes.
Yeah, and these carts will be free to Nahant residents, right?
They'll be free to the Nahant residents. And, we are going to work to, should this pass, we would work to secure a grant through DEP that could reduce the total cost of the carts, and we wouldn't even need to use all $75,000.
Tony, how far behind are the regular trash bins?
We're not incorporating that into the upcoming year's contract. So we have the ability to make, what we're negotiating right now is a 5-year contract. We're not changing the style of how we handle our waste, but we are putting in a provision in there that we have the option to renegotiate should we want to do that. If we were to go to standardized carts on the trash side, it would increase or it would decrease our rate even more so. But from our rate is pretty low as it is, and from different speaking to different people around town, talking about how this has been implemented in other communities, we didn't feel we were ready to adjust it on the trash side quite yet. So this is a nice way to, in the recycling side is really where a lot of our environmental issues, like I said, because the open air containers is a really nice way to introduce these carts to the community and get them familiar with them. And then it kind of takes us that next step to potentially incorporating them on the trash side, but we're not doing that in the upcoming year. All right, so the next, let's see, I'm just scrolling down to the next change. In the Article 25, this is the firearm discharge bylaw. We already had this in here, this bylaw in here, but we looking a little bit closer at it, off the shore as a measurement of distance, it didn't really make sense. Most of the time when you're dealing with buffers around the coast, you're measuring from the mean low water line. So we incorporated that language into this bylaw. Article 30 is the marijuana zoning bylaw amendment. So for marijuana and for plastic bags, when I shared my screen earlier when we were talking about those, you saw how lengthy those bylaws were. It's common practice when you're dealing with a lengthy bylaw that you can put an abbreviated article in the warrant and refer to those documents that will be in the town clerk's office. And of course, the full length of the bylaw will also be included in the FinCom's booklet that will go to every resident. So this is an abbreviated version of what we already discussed. Article 37, basically, because I put that recycling, the article for recycling carts at the top, I moved the chapter 90 down to here. Article 38 is again, an abbreviated version of the shopping of the plastic bag ban. Article 39, this is the Board of Selectmen sponsored warrant article regarding drainage in the lowlands, which if you look, Article 40 is the citizen petition article regarding drainage in the lowlands. Citizen petitions, as you know, cannot be adjusted. The language is what it is. Well, they can be adjusted, but the process to do so, it really didn't work here. So we've been working closely with the residents in the neighborhood on changes to the citizen petition, and this is something that we would have presented at town meeting on the floor. However, in speaking with them and in speaking with the finance committee, we felt it made more sense to incorporate an article right here in the warrant so that folks are better prepared for what we will see at town meeting. So this article is a borrowing, allows for a borrowing of $100,000 that would go towards the Lowlands neighborhood, generally consisting of Castle Road, Fox Hill Road, Ward Road, to improve stormwater drainage in a number of different ways. I will be meeting with the neighborhood next week to further describe this article and the intent of or the direction that the town is heading in regarding stormwater in the area.
Tony, can we chat just for a minute about this?
Sure.
I know that you were at a planning board meeting and that this subject came up because they're looking for a grant from the CPT of some $60,000 to conduct a couple of surveys, one being topographical and the other is what was it, what they call the other survey?
Their application is, I think it's titled like an ecological restoration.
Okay, well, whatever that might have been, my question is, before we go this route, and I know we're down the road, wouldn't it be good to have a game plan, to have a study on this before we jump into it?
So this citizens petition was brought forward to be included in last year's town meeting, well before, so it's a year old. We've been working with the neighborhood there. We've done studies. We've conducted a game plan. We've already made progress on that, and we're continuing to do so. So this article here is a product of that. The planning board, I don't want to speak for the planning board and what they are looking for from the CPC. It's not intertwined with this, and nor would it would I want to alter the couple of years of work that we've done with the neighborhood to get to where we are here. So that's kind of a separate path, a separate plan by the planning board, different from what we're trying to do with the neighborhood. So I want, we're kind of further along in a plan. We're at the action phase more than at the planning phase. There is part of this article would further explore the feasibility of recovering a existing outfall pipe in the area. So there is some study money here, but most of this is action money.
Okay, I clearly understand what you're saying, and I think the work you've done so far, the DPW and I think a minimal amount of mosquito control, what's been done is really progress. I'm just looking at that feasibility study as a long-term approach to this thing, because this is going to require that in order to fix it, especially with climate change.
I'm not sure how to, I don't know how to answer that. We've done a lot of studying already. We've done a lot of work with MVP on climate change. We are dealing in this area of town, dealing with the critical issue of being able to de-water a flood scenario, while also being able to improve day-to-day storm drainage. So what this article, I guess, would be more geared towards short-term and mid-term goals. And what the planning board's doing is more of a long-term goal. So they're kind of two separate items.
That's what I said.
Okay, agreed. That's it. As far unless there's any other questions on the lowlands drainage, the other changes here are just simply the numbers of the articles. Obviously, as you fit new ones in, you got to adjust them.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Any further discussion on this? Do we have a motion to, we need a motion then to accept these changes and to close the warrant?
So you have, the motion on the floor was to open the warrant, and then that was the discussion on that motion. So if you can vote in the affirmative of that, and then the next motion will be to accept the changes as presented, close the warrant, and send them to the FinCom.
Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Josh for my.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
All right, so we'll follow that with another motion. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to accept and close the 2021 annual town meeting warrant as presented and send it to the Advisory and Finance Committee to begin taking positions with the understanding that ongoing review will occur by the Board of Selectmen and that modifications may occur at a later time.
Seconded.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor?
Josh for my.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye. Okay, we have one more item in ongoing business, and that is the wall that heals. And I take it that Toby Quirk is on board here, and I see Bob Fields is also joining us. So you want to give us an update on this?
Hey guys, how you doing? So Toby's not available to attend, unfortunately, and as you know, he is our chair of the wall coming to town. Things are going really well. I don't want to really get into a full update, but volunteers are coming in, fundraising's happening. We're monitoring all of the COVID restrictions. Everybody's really excited about the wall coming, and we appreciate your support in that. I just happen to be on to listen to Toby as well.
Okay, great, Bob. Anything that we can do to help out, just let us know, and I look forward to this event. It looks like a really nice thing to do. So whatever
Tony's Tony and the town departments have been great. Toby can get into that in more detail, but we feel really confident with the support we're getting. So thank you very much.
All right, thanks. And thanks for all the work you do, Bob. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, preserving East Point. During our last meeting, I think Ken and a number of residents had a few questions that were addressed to the board. So I'd like to try to answer them. The problem was that the board was unable to meet to discuss this among ourselves. So I think we all may have our own sort of responses to the questions that were put forward. So what I'll do first is I'll read my response anyway to your questions, Ken, and then I'll turn it over to Josh and Jean, and they can add to what they feel they want to. So let me go through this. Have Josh go through his, have Jean go through his if they wish. And then Ken, if you have any follow-up questions, we'll just open your mic at that point. Okay. The first question you asked, why did we, the town of Nahant, join the two lawsuits between Northeastern and the Nahant Preservation Trust? Why are they consolidated into one? We did so because we believe that it is in the interest of the town of Nahant to do so. The lawsuit initially was brought by Northeastern University against not only the Nahant Preservation Trust, but 28 residents of the town as well. In turn, those 28 individuals and the Nahant Preservation Trust brought suit against Northeastern University as a means to protect the environment and preserve East Point. We joined the lawsuit because we hope the land at East Point will remain conservation land. The aims of the lawsuit are consistent with the preservation of East Point as a natural resource area as provided by town meeting actions 30 years ago, and since exemplified by the further development of and investment in Lodge Park. The town of Nahant has its own claims in this case concerning Northeastern's promises to maintain East Point as a wildlife preserve that are independent of and in addition to the claims brought by the Nahant Preservation Trust. The Nahant Preservation Trust has worked on preservationist activities for more than a quarter century. It has led to the restoration and productive reuse of the Valley Road School, now the Nahant Community Center, and our iconic life-saving station. It has led to the reclamation and preservation of valued wetlands in and around Mass Audubon's Nahant Thicket Wildlife Sanctuary. The Nahant Preservation Trust has raised millions of dollars to benefit our town, and it shares our goals of preserving East Point. We view it in the interest of the town to support those efforts, particularly so as here when our goals align. The town and the Nahant Preservation Trust clearly have parallel interests in this matter. Joining forces strengthens our efforts to preserve East Point and allows for efficiencies in sharing resources. Your second question asked, what is the process by which legal strategies regarding East Point is being formulated, and how does the Nahant Preservation Trust contribute to these legal fees? Legal strategies regarding East Point is formulated by the Selectmen in consultation with its attorneys. While Nahant Preservation Trust contributes towards the legal cost, it does not control or direct the town's legal strategy. That is the point of the language in the gift agreement you referred to. The town, i.e., the town will choose its own course of action in this matter, even though the Nahant Preservation Trust is contributing funds to cover legal costs. To date, funds have been contributed by the Nahant Preservation Trust based on actual and anticipated legal costs and expenses as communicated between the town and the Nahant Preservation Trust in normal course. Your third question was, why was there no public disclosure and discussion of gifts? The gifts from the Nahant Preservation Trust have been fully and publicly disclosed. Similarly, our decision to join the Nahant Preservation Trust lawsuit has also been fully and publicly disclosed. We have strived for transparency in our effort to protect East Point, both with respect to keeping the public informed in our communications with Northeastern. We are continuing to do our level best to represent and protect the interests of the town and to fulfill the campaign promises made when each member of the Board of Selectmen, current Board of Selectmen, ran for public office, including the protection of the town's natural resources at East Point. So those are my responses to your questions, Ken. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Josh if you have anything that you would like to add.
Well, I wrote my own letter and was sort of following your letter along as you went. And I think you covered most of what I wanted to say. So I'll just read off a few of the notes that that I had that maybe didn't quite cover. One question was, why did you use the language it is expressly understood and agreed by and between the town and NPT, that by accepting said funds and by executing this agreement, neither the town nor the board expressly or implicitly makes representation or a promise that it is endorsed or will endorse a particular course of action, nor will it recommend a particular course of action to town meeting. Question is, why were those words used? And the answer is, this means that the town, by accepting the gifts from NPT, is not beholden to the wishes of NPT. In other words, making a donation does not buy influence. And to the question of why we joined the lawsuit, just to reiterate really what you said, Mark, we joined the lawsuit because we hoped to preserve this land at East Point, which was zone natural resource area 30 years ago. We wish to keep that as conservation land. That's the simple answer. You know, I want to say that that the three boards, the three members of this Board of Selectmen have publicly stated many times prior to being elected and many times since being elected that we wish to preserve this land as conservation land. As individuals and as a board, we have been 100% consistent and transparent on this matter. You know, what we are seeking here is an educated public, so that when the matter of eminent domain or any other issue comes up, that we have an educated public and educated voters. Eminent domain is one method, probably the most certain method, to ensure that East Point remains conservation land for the public to enjoy forever. To ensure that the costs and risks are fully understood, the Board of Selectmen have methodically collected the relevant information about the cost to the taxpayers for eminent domain, the amount of contribution from private donors, the real estate appraisal, the legal possibilities, the cost to the taxpayers for hosting an expanded Northeastern, which should not be forgotten, by the way. For full transparency, we have created a web page where we post every one of these documents. They're all publicly shared on the Nahant.org web page. That, to me, is the definition of full transparency. This letter, quite frankly, carried an undertone of distrust and hinting that there was some sort of nefarious content here. There is no nefarious content. The intent here is to educate the public, answer these questions. That's what we're doing here. I hope the same level of scrutiny is applied to Northeastern as is being applied to the volunteers that are trying to help out the town, and to NPT. Ken, I hope that you're asking Northeastern why they need a 55,000 square foot building for 114 people. Are you asking why they're banning people from their campus? I've been on college campuses all over the country. Never once have I been banned. I just yesterday saw someone getting yelled at by the security guard for walking on their property. We've had a bogus open meeting law violation claim against the Board of Selectmen, which we're forced to defend. We've had the Northeastern filing a plot plan right before attempting to file a plot plan right before a special town meeting. And we're told straight to our face, we just felt like filing a plot plan. We've had Northeastern calling the Attorney General's office after that special town meeting, trying to interfere, in my opinion, with the democratic process. So I hope the same level of scrutiny is being applied to Northeastern. I also want to say about Nahant Preservation Trust, every time we drive by the Coast Guard station and see the veterans, raising the flag, or having an event, or a wedding taking place, or a birthday party, I don't think very many of us think, I wish that was a peeling, dilapidated, boarded up building. So I think we certainly have Nahant Preservation Trust to be grateful for that. Same thing with Valley Road School. We go into the Nahant Historical Society with their beautiful displays, or go to lectures there, or exercise classes. And I don't think many of us think, boy, I wish this was 2 more houses and there was no place for the Historical Society to be housed. So NPT has contributed millions of dollars to this town over the last 25 years. They've always come through on their promise. And I, for one, am grateful for the donations and contributions they've made to this town. So I hope you got all your answers. I support your curiosity because I support an informed public. That's all I have.
Thank you, Josh. Jane, any comments?
Yeah, just kind of extemporaneous here a bit, but some good comments there, Josh. So some of the words that I picked up are to preserve to educate the public, transparency, and appealing to their better senses. I think you guys in particular, Mark and yourself, have done a tremendous job in researching this, in digging deep in this, in providing the information that we've tried to provide. And I think that's going to be ongoing. I think that if we could all talk as a group and not violate the open meeting law, we would probably all come to the consensus that we need to put more numbers, more data out in front of everybody up until town meeting so people can make that educated vote that needs to be made. I had a bunch of notes that disappeared on me somehow, but this is a kind of a personal thing for me because I got involved heavily in Lodge Park, as you know, as most know. And at that time, I never saw anything like this coming. Not that that would have changed anything, but it just wasn't, you couldn't see this coming down the road. When we got stuck for money, we had a $500,000 project that we got funded for absolutely zero. And Mark was a major part in helping us to generate some funds at that time. And we never got a nickel out of Northeastern. Nothing. All they gave us was access to do the construction trek up the road to the park, to convert the dump into a beautiful park area. And now we're trying to maintain that natural resource area, and we're having difficulty with it. I guess after listening to this for so long, 8 months, but prior to that as well, I would like to question you, Ken, if you wouldn't mind coming back with an answer, because I think we all need to talk more, work this thing out, get some information from your camp, our camp, see what we can do to pull it together. Because I think people need to come to the realization that this park is so important to the future. In fact, it's interesting. While we were sitting here going through the meeting, I'm looking at this. This is the environmental impact report. There's a copy up at the library for anybody that wants to read it or browse through it. It's 900 pages, but there's 3 sections in there, and they're listed as 3 alternative projects. In my mind, and this is not somebody else telling me this, I sense that these aren't 3 alternate projects. There's the one that they've got before us now, and there's 2 more projects that will come to us in the future because there's just too much work been done on both of them. So we're going to wind up with the Murphy Bunker. We're going to wind up over back again, expanding the Edwards Center. And we're going to have another one southeast or southwest of where we are now from the bathing beach. We need to put a stop to it. There's no doubt about it. So I'll go back to you, Ken. My question, and I've wanted to ask this of you a few times, and take it the right way, is what is your position in all of this? What is it you're looking for or looking to accomplish by having these questions answered? And are we answering your questions? Are we getting the job done? Apparently, it doesn't appear that way. So all I can say is when people go to town meeting, it is so important that they know what they have in front of them. It's been totally, completely discussed. And that vote is going to determine what the future of that area and the town itself is going to be. I'd like to see you guys step up. I'd like you to see part of a support group. And I think that can happen. I honestly think it can. People just need to open their minds and get a better understanding of what actually is being done and going to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you, Josh. I guess those are three separate types of answers, but any follow-up that you want us to address? You're muted.
Thanks, Tony. Okay. Well, here I was just hoping for a simple letter. Okay. Let's see. A few things. I mean, the general premise for all of the questioning, and not just for this letter, but in general, is really to understand the balance between what East Point is, what Northeastern is proposing there, and what the really fundamental needs of the town are long-term beyond that piece of land on top of the Murphy bunker. And by that, I mean things like water and sewer infrastructure, things like dealing with sea level rise, things like seawalls that protect the beaches, things like flood control, there are things that you guys talked about in this meeting that have literally been being talked about for 20-something years. And yet here we are, still talking about them. Those issues there's been like some incremental progress on many things, but the amount of attention and energy being focused on what, in my mind, is not a destruction at all. It's just the latest in a series of modifications to that piece of land. It's taken on such a disproportionate effect on this board, on the town, on town finances. And again, not to be flippant about it, what they're proposing is not that big a deal. If you look at the renderings, if you look at what the actual plot plan looks like, if you stand at Lodge Park today and you look out at the ocean and you've got a 295-degree view, unobstructed, without even turning around, there's nothing that Northeastern is doing or wants to do that affects that view. When I moved here 15 years ago, the valley that is now such a contentious point was essentially barren. It's been left to overgrow for this entire time. And suddenly it's important. Suddenly it has to be preserved. Granted, yes, there's wildlife there. Yes, there's a snowy owl. The snowy owl also finds his way over to Bass Point and Little Nahant and, across the causeway. I don't know where he's nesting, but he seems to be doing just fine. I guess the point is, looking at the history of East Point, right, from way back when, and some of this was on Facebook, there was a massive hotel there in the 1800s that burned down. Senator Lodge had his estate there. It was a missile base. It was a barren stretch of land. It was a dump. And suddenly it's this thing that has to be preserved at all costs. And that's really the reason for the questions and the reason for the pushback here. It is literally at all costs. Now, to go over some of your points, yes, there are numbers out there, right? There's the RKG report that did an independent assessment, although it was based on inputs from the board, inputs from Nahant Preservation Trust, and followed a methodology that is arguable. It's not a fact. It is an opinion from a consultant based on inputs from you guys. Right? The numbers that were prepared by a member of the Finance Committee, but not the entire Finance Committee, have also been circulated. They were in your second statement that went out last year. Those have never been approved by anyone. They were reviewed by the FinCom. They were not approved. So to say that there are numbers out there, yes, there are numbers out there that are confusing the hell out of people because they're not vetted, they're not discussed, they're put forth as reality. So just in terms of, again, the disproportionate effect on the town, what the actual impact on Lodge Park, which isn't even part of this, is, and honestly, as a property owner, this is a horrible example. Why wasn't Peter Regal's property taken by eminent domain and a new park created there? Why wasn't it turned into low-income housing? Why is it that the Valley Road School has a great museum with the Nahant Historical Society? I love their stuff. They do amazing work. That building, and Mark, you well know this, that building could be housing a bunch of seniors. It could have been turned into condos.
And those are ludicrous comparisons.
Why?
That's not the way that's going to work, or that's the way it's going to go. Are you saying that my contention that they're not going to do, or that they are going to build, is wrong?
With all due respect, Mr. Canty, I believe you are misinterpreting that filing, which this board reviewed, which Mr. Mussman, who I'm pointing down at the lower part of the screen here, had input to. Those were 3 different alternatives. They cannot physically be built. They can't all be built. They were presented as alternatives to accomplish what Northeastern wanted to accomplish. They selected one based on a disastrous meeting that they totally screwed up and just scared the hell out of everybody with back in 2018. But there's no, to think that there's a secret plan of building all 3 of those somehow. I'm not sure where, you said that you feel that's the case. I don't know what that would be based on.
So if this were to go forward, do you feel confident that they would provide a conservation restriction?
They have put in writing that they will do that at no cost to the town. They've done so in public mailings and public statements.
All right, so can I say a couple things here?
Sure.
First of all, Ken, we are capable of multitasking. We are not ignoring everything else in town at the expense of this. There will be an article on the town warrant at the next town meeting asking to authorize the Board of Selectmen to execute eminent domain or to preserve conservation land at East Point, contingent upon $3 million being privately donated in advance. If you believe there's value in conservation land for all to enjoy, or if you believe that Nahant's negotiation or mediation position is strengthened by having more leverage, then vote yes. If you think Nahant is better off with less conservation land and development of a natural resource area, an area that was designated 30 years ago as a natural resource area, then vote no. It's that simple.
So, Josh, was what you were just doing advocating or educating?
I'm telling you what the choices are.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay.
I tried to get some of Mark's points down to follow up on. One of the things in terms of the warrant article, Josh, that you mentioned, the warrant article will include, as it's currently written, it's completely open-ended. Mark pointed out a couple of meetings ago that that's placeholder language. Will the warrant article include some documentation of the funding? Is there going to be a gift letter? Is there going to be some sort of actual pledge that's enforceable for the gifts? Is there going to be a plan to make up the difference between a pro tanto amount that is higher than your estimate in what the gifts may be that CPC can't cover? Is none of that all of this was asked last year when it was coming up town meeting and not answered then. Will those questions be answered?
I can answer that. The answer is yes on all of them.
Great.
Okay.
Let me just, if there were a compelling, convincing case that this was a lower risk option for the town, but I don't really care if Northeastern builds there or not. It's not about being pro Northeastern. It's about putting the town at risk for, for what honestly is more of a crusade, it appears, than, an actual project.
Let me just say this, Ken. There's probably no one in this Zoom meeting today that understands the town's fiduciary position better than I do. I would not be putting this before the town if I thought for 1 second that we are going to be at a disadvantage or we wouldn't be able to fill our obligation without breaking the bank. That's not going to happen.
Okay. So just for example, if the eminent domain happens, you go to court and the pro tanto amount is $10 million. You've got $3 million in gifts. It's $1 million or plus 1.2, 1 point whatever from CPC, assuming that continues indefinitely. Where does the rest of that come from?
You'll see over the next week or two the process that the Board of Selectmen will be recommending to town meeting that will ensure those uncertainties will be met.
Okay. Will you be able to confidently say that there will never be a need for a debt exclusion or a tax increase to cover that gap that I mentioned?
If there is, it will be a decision made by the town.
Okay, guess I'll have to see what the article looks like. I forget who it was, referred to a bogus open meeting law claim. I guess, I don't know the details of that, but until it's actually resolved, I guess it's an opinion that it's bogus. Let's see. Okay, so if
my real question, Ken, was, are you challenging only us that are volunteering to help the town, or do you and assume everything Northeastern says is fact? Or
no?
Okay, good.
No, and as someone who's volunteered on 3 different committees, including the FinCom for 4 years, I am well aware of the burden of being a volunteer in a very thankless job. So anyway, yes, I am questioning, and I guess the level of rigor and that I'm seeing, or we, not just myself, but the others who signed and the others in town who are not in favor of this. There seems to be a lot more detail and a lot more answers, presented than around this eminent domain plan. As I said, it's been very frustrating asking these questions for over a year. Mark, if there are answers coming, that'll be great. But right now we're promising this, don't worry about it, everything's taken care of, versus here's a very concrete plan and an offer to the town of $6 million and a conservation easement. I don't understand why that is such an unacceptable alternative. If eminent domain were free, if it were lower risk, if it didn't take all that it's taking, that'd be a different balance. But I'm not sure what we're fighting to the death for here.
Northeastern's position of issuing a conservation restriction after they built everything they want to build falls on deaf ears.
Okay, and again, I'm not going to do the public information session for Northeastern that they should be doing, but what they intend to build, as I understand and see the plans, is on top of the Murphy bunker. It's about 15,000 square feet that is visible above the bunker. That's actually, and what they're building is actually lower than the trees that are up there now. It's not even going to, it'll be visible during construction, yes. It'll take a little while for stuff to grow back, yes. Who's going to see it? It's not this concept, and this, honestly, and this is where I get frustrated, because it's a misrepresentation to say that they want to put 55,000 square feet on top of the bunker. That's just a misrepresent. That's not what the plan says. That's not what they're asking for.
We haven't seen a detailed plan. We haven't seen a detailed plan, have you?
That's what it sounds
There's a
like.
400-page one, Mark, that you've seen. They just sent one out. Now.
I see 125 car parking lot. I see a geothermal well field that's about 2 or 3 acres. I see a lot of destruction of the environment up there. That's what I see.
Okay, and the geothermal wells, after they're dug, what is the impact there? The grass grows around them?
No, they have to be maintained.
Okay, kind of like the missiles. And again, if the board has some different proposition as to where they can build it, if the parking lots are going to be an issue, and you're telling them, well, don't build it there, build it somewhere else, you've already excluded all of the possibilities.
I don't believe we have. And Northeastern refuses to negotiate with us, in spite of the fact that the Superior Court judge asked them to do that, or suggested they do that. They still haven't gotten back to us. And they just refuse to do anything other than what they want to do. They're not negotiating with the town. They don't care about the town's needs and interests. If they did, they would be talking to us. They're not.
Ken, have you had meetings with Northeastern?
Have I had meetings with Northeastern?
Yes.
I have talked to Jeff Trussell, yes. That said, I don't care if Northeastern builds it or not. That's not what this is about. I'm honestly, and the other citizens are honestly trying to understand exactly what's happening and what is being proposed here and why. And the questions regarding the Nahant Preservation Trust, yes, the Coast Guard station is a wonderful thing. The Valley Road School, it's been converted to a purpose that's very narrow, that honestly serves a very narrow demographic and a very small number of people. There's no low-income housing in this town. There's a catastrophic fear of a 40B or something. What this does, and what the potential tax increase does, Mark, when this ends up being $10 or $15 million and not $4, is that...
Ken, let me stop you there. How do you know it's going to be $10 or $15 million? Do you have information that says that?
I have talked to other people, not Northeastern, Mark, but I mean, to say that it's 4 million and to value, again, we can get into the nitty gritty of how the estimates came up, but there are other ways of going to that estimate. If you look at things like what's happening in other eminent domain issues, or if you look at you're not trading conservation land that's got nothing on it for money. They're using it. There's a lab there. There's a use going on. You mentioned at one point, you just take all of these points. If you do that, then fine, guess what? So you're going to have to compensate them for losing a lab that they've had for 40-something years.
That's incorrect, Ken. That is incorrect.
Really?
Yes.
So there's no damage to them. They are owed nothing if you take away that entire property.
We're not taking anything that they're currently doing today away from them. They can continue doing that for another million years for all I care. We're not taking any of that away.
Okay, in one of the iterations here, Mark, and I don't remember the exact date of the meeting, I believe it was you who literally said, we'll just take the entire point. And right now, the way the warrant article is written, you could take the entire point if that were voted.
We're not taking what they're doing away from them. They continue doing what they're doing. We're not going to interfere with that. We're just stopping them from expanding to the extent that they want to expand into the natural resource area. We're against that. We are not against what Northeastern Marine Science Labs are doing today. We hope they continue doing it.
Okay, fair enough. Let me just ask a couple more things.
Tony, is there anyone else that needs to speak up? Tony?
If there's anyone else that wants to speak up, just either raise your hand or, okay, I see Jeff Busman here. I'm gonna ask to unmute. Jeff?
Got it.
There you go.
Sorry. So Ken, just a couple points. I have to say that your letter implies that the Preservation Trust, a private entity. I mean, you characterize it in a way that makes it appear as if it were some foreign entity, but it's not. It obviously is not. It's a public nonprofit charity, like the American Red Cross, like Lynn Community Health Center, like the Friends of the Nahant Public Library, like Nahant Historical Society. There are no owners, there are no shareholders. It has hundreds of members, and those members are residents of Big Nahant, Little Nahant, Bass Point, Castle Road, Fox Hill Road, all over Nahant. They're unpaid volunteers. The preservation of the Valley Road School was their first project. And as Mark has correctly noted, as Josh has correctly noted, it was the beginning of a 25-year relationship with the town. You talk about the Valley Road School because it has a limited use. Well, this is before you were there. For many years, many people, including Mark, I think, was on at least one or two of the study committees that recommended to the town that the town convert that building to housing. The town rejected it over and over again. To save that building, the Nahant Preservation Trust came up with a concept which has worked. It raised, $1.5 million. It pays a pilot. It pays much more than the way of pilot than Northeastern University has. It has paid more and contributed more to the town in the last 25 years than Northeastern has in the 50 years. I think that to be describing the Nahant Preservation Trust as a foreign entity, or to characterize it in some way that makes it appear that there's some negative motivation here, is simply misleading. It's misinformation, something that you seem to consider of some importance. I'm distressed by it, quite honestly. The goal here is to preserve the open space, which is the headland of East Point. That's it. No nefarious motivation here. And the fact is that the trust, with their anonymous donors, their multitude of donors, are committing to fund $3 million. So, I don't know where you continue to question that issue. They have stated it publicly. The trust is hundreds of people here in Nahant. So, it's distressing to me that you question it. Yet Northeastern, you question not at all. I mean, to build this 55,000 square foot building, they will tear down, they will strip the battery. We're talking another 50 years between now and when the growth returns. It's frustrating to me, Ken, quite honestly. So, enough. I'm done.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? I don't have anybody. You can either write your name in the chat and then I'll unmute you, or if you want to just wave your hands, happy to do that too. I don't have anyone else, Mr. Chairman. I saw Ken's hand raised in there. I can go back to Ken.
Sure, go ahead.
Ken, go ahead and unmute.
Yep. Thank you. Just to answer Mr. Mussman here, the nefarious, I think, is too strong a word. I think my and our again, the other citizens who signed this letter and others are concerned that a lawsuit that began against a private entity, the Nahant Preservation Trusts, and one that actually named some individuals, which I'm sure is very distressing to those individuals, was joined by the town. So when it appears that when Nahant Preservation Trust was not going to be able to succeed in what it wanted to do, it basically got the town to throw its weight as a legal entity into the lawsuit that the town originally had nothing to do with. That's distressing. As far as the gifts being publicly stated, and Jeff didn't say this was somebody else, where there was one that was publicly stated, it was given as a check at the beginning. Mark, you were celebratory in that meeting. It took multiple public records requests to get the information that's in this letter. These are not listed in any detail in any meeting minutes. So, and the gift letter that went into effect in April that says you don't have to approve these individually anymore, that the money can just flow. Dan Script said, well, just file a public records request. There was a verbal agreement then to just go ahead and yes, you would mention them in these meetings if they came up again, but that hadn't happened.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of being nefarious. It's a matter of like what's the priority here, and who is actually being represented.
Yeah, Ken, I'm going to jump in here for a minute. I mean, I think your premise is you stated that at the point when the Nahant Preservation Trust knew they were going to lose the case, they joined with the town joined with them. That's not the case at all. I mean, I think without the town of Nahant, the Nahant Preservation's lawsuit, as supported by Superior Judge Kopp, has huge success potential, right? With or without Nahant. The reason Nahant joined the case is because we have a shared interest and we can share our resources and share our knowledge. It's not because not the Preservation Trust was facing imminent doom. They weren't, and they're not. Because if they were, the Superior Court judge would have thrown this out long ago, and they haven't. They've scheduled a jury trial for February on this. So to say that the original lawsuit by Nahant Preservation Trust had no merit is just flat incorrect and misleading. You're muted again. He's muted.
I see Jim Walsh would like to speak. Do you want me to go back to Ken first, or I'll let Jim? Ken, why don't I let Jim speak and then I'll come back to you. Jim, I'm hitting ask to unmute. You have to press the mute button.
How about now?
There you go.
Okay. So, first of all, as Ken knows, Ken and I have talked about this, and I respect Ken as a person, as an intellect. I'm thankful for his service to the town, although I think I've served on more committees for longer than you did, Ken. But here's the thing. The main point for us right now, I think, is to empower the Board of Selectmen to, if they wish, go forward and take that property by eminent domain. If we vote to support this, that does not require the Board of Selectmen to do it. It just enables them to do it. They will then be in a much stronger position to say to Northeastern, okay, now let's negotiate. Let's actually talk. But that up till now, all Northeastern has said is, and I've been involved in this with Northeastern through Congressman Moulton's office and a whole bunch of discussions. Northeastern says, we will do what we want whenever we want to do it because we can, and you can't do anything about it. So forget it. And if you do something, we're going to cost you millions of dollars in legal fees. We're going to fight you, and we're a $1 billion corporation, and you cannot possibly beat us. So give up. You know what? We didn't do it. And that was 3 years ago. We're still at it. So we're trying to say by this vote that if you do not negotiate credibly, then we will proceed with eminent domain. The whole question about the cost to the town has been so misrepresented. And Ken, you talk about $15 million. Why not talk about $50 million? Enzo used to talk about it, $50 million it's going to cost us. There is no record whatsoever of any estimate that would come anywhere near that. The judge who will ultimately decide what the value was will have to go not on some far out opinion. He has to look at the factual estimates made by professional people, which have been so far made that they've come in lower than the 4.5 million that has been set aside. So the selectmen have already built in some wiggle room there as far as what the cost would be. So and it's just as likely in my mind that the cost will be less, because we're not going to go in and say, we'll give you 4.5 million. We're going to say, we're going to give you, 2.8, which I can't forget the exact amount, but it's somewhere in that area. We'll give you 2.8, and they'll say, no, we want 7. But the judge will have to look at facts, not just some fantasy world that said, $50 million. That doesn't work. It's not true. So what we are trying to do now is empower the town of Nahant to negotiate from a position of strength with an entity that has not been willing to do so. But here's the other thing. If we do not prevail here, then Northeastern will be in a position to do whatever they want. And they'll say, and they've done this before, they'll say, oh, well, yes, well, we've changed our mind, by the way, on that 55,000. We really want to do 155,000. And you know what? We've already established that we can do whatever we want. And so we're going to do that. They did that in Roxbury Crossing, where they negotiated with the neighborhood to build a dormitory that was 8 stories high. Then a month before it went for final approval, they said, oh, you know what? Actually, it's 22 stories. We changed our mind on that. My friend, I do not trust that corporate entity. I respect learning. I respect research, but they are a corporate entity with their own interests, and their interests are not consistent with our interests as a town. As I've been here for 47 years, I know people have been here longer, but in those 47 years, I have come to love this unique place. There's no place like this. With our sense of community when we're not fighting one another, the sense of community, the access to nature is just incredible. We're not Saugus, we're not. We are different than that, and we have to protect it. And if we don't, we are in trouble, I think, as a community. So I'll let it go at that. Thank you.
All right. While we move on, Josh or Gene, anything else to say?
No, I think I got my answer.
Josh, okay, yep. I didn't know if you were frozen.
No, I was just checking to see what's next on the agenda. Looks like town administrator's report.
We can skip right over it and open up to citizens forum. if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, hopefully we can cover other issues other than East Point at this point in the citizen forum, although just open it up, whoever wants to talk. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll open it up. I will make a point, a mediator type point. You know, a couple of the folks who spoke during that last portion, you know, referenced other people that are, you know, existing volunteers or former volunteers that are not on the call. And, you know, just as a mediator perspective, I think we should try to avoid, doing that since they are not here on the call. So if anybody else wants to speak,
Yeah, let's try to get some comments from people who haven't spoke yet.
sure. Diane?
Hello, Diane Monteith, 20 Seabreeze Lane. First of all, I want to say that I think that was a healthy discussion, and I think we should continue the discussions so that we can actually work on the facts. When we're on the fly a little bit, some of the things that I heard are could be more clear, okay? I won't go into them, but what I'd like to recommend is a meeting so that we could have these kinds of discussions within the open meeting law and really bring our facts, bring our books, bring our experts and have this kind of discussion. I think it's healthy. There's a couple of areas that we have to revisit. You know, it's a conservation easement. The Marine Science Center is staying the same. They get to operate. They have to, you know, they want the sea water intake expansion. You know, we're going to work with them. This is not an all or nothing. This is not shutting down the Marine Science Center. So why don't we continue the discussion? Is anybody willing to do that?
Thank you, Diane.
We've been doing that. We had the Q&A with the lawyers about eminent domain, and we published that FAQs. And you know, I mean, I feel like our position is openness, and you know, happy to share whatever we know.
I will follow up with a meeting, a public meeting regarding the eminent domain issue, some of the questions that Ken had that I feel we can address so that people have a complete and full understanding of what it is that's being proposed. You know, there are just a lot, at this point, there have been a lot of legal strategies that we've been working on, particularly in executive session. I'm sure there's a lot that Northeastern has been working on. I think we're finally coming to an end on how we want to proceed with this and what we want to recommend to the town. And I will have a public hearing on what we decide when that's finalized.
If there's anyone else that wants to speak during citizens forum, if you, like I said, if you either want to wave your hands around if you're on video or write in the chat, I'll unmute you. All right.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody for participating. Let's see. We're going to be going into executive session tonight. And we're not returning to regular session. Okay. All right. Do I have a Josh? We have a motion to adjourn to an executive session.
I move that we adjourn into executive session in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for contract negotiations with the town administrator, and in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy regarding ongoing litigation, Michael Feinberg versus Town of Nahant et al.
Motion
Second.
made. Motion made. Discussion. Tony, are we staying on this Zoom link?
We'll stay on here. Obviously, we'll first go into the litigation, and then I will exit the executive session so that you guys can continue to discuss. We can stay on here. I will respectfully remove everyone else off of the meeting and turn off our live stream.
Mr. Chairman, before you take your vote, do you declare that to have these discussions in open session would defeat the purpose of executive session?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All in favor?
Josh Antrim, aye.
Jane Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and I thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Appreciate it.
Hey, Tony, Greg is on the line too, so
I
we'll keep
see
him
him.
on.
I see him.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Oh,
Hold on one second here.
so we've been trying to save gas, heating.